What is going on? Welcome to Clips and Dip, Season 2, Episode 70, Big 7-0 for the second season. We have no idea how many episodes a season is, but we've done 70 in the second season so far. Welcome to hopefully your favorite Clippers podcast. I am Chuck Mockler, joined by Adam Oslin and William Updike. We have the full trio here bringing you today's episode. We're going to talk keys to Game 2, what the Mavs might do differently. We got a high five, which is going to be very fun. But before we get into all of that, we want to thank everyone for listening and for watching. If you're subscribing to the YouTube, come hang out. We're doing a live after the game tomorrow. We did one after the game yesterday or 2 days ago. It was very fun. Will was on a racetrack. Adam was in the stadium. Before we get into it, fellas, how you doing? Will, you were experiencing the Clippers game in the Bay. I'm sure they were going crazy for the Clippers win over the Mavs. How you doing?
I'm doing really good, man. That was it was a great game one. It kind of got a little close for comfort in the second half, but overall, I thought the Clippers looked really good, really dominant. We'll see how they counter, especially Ivica Zubats, and we'll see how that's gonna go moving forward. But yeah, there wasn't a lot of excitement in the old Bay Area for the Clippers. Most of the conversation really revolved around how Kawhi Leonard never plays. My voice got a little shrill saying he played more than 65 games this year.
Shouting at old men at the racetrack.
Yeah, that's fine. It's fine.
Adam?
Why don't they worry about them playing in a 7-game series and making it out of the play-in up there in Oaktown, up there in San Francisco instead with the Golden State Warriors? Why are they so concerned about Kawhi? Let us be concerned about Kawhi because we are.
Adam, how are you doing? You were taking, I'm assuming, some happy callers over on Clippers Talk.
Yeah, people were in a good mood, celebratory mood post-game, but it wasn't out of control. They had things in perspective, knowing it was just game one. But it was a great victory by the Clippers in the manner they won, I thought.
It was wonderful all around. We mentioned Kawhi. The injury update did come out from the Clippers today on the report. He's questionable. Not a big shocker there. Ty Lue also mentioned that Kawhi will go through practice today, but the Clippers aren't doing any contact. It's more of a walkthrough. Will, I don't know how you feel about this, but I feel like it's a pretty low chance he's playing tomorrow night, would be my guess.
Yeah, I would say pretty low. I mean, even in the worst case scenario, snagging game one bought them an extra week of rest for Kawhi. So we'll see how he progresses and how that goes. Look, I mean, if he's still not doing any contact, I fail to see how he would be available for game two. So yeah, I would. The Mavs this time can get their plan right and go ahead and probably assume that he's not going to be there.
They were so confused.
Well, Adam, very tough for Jason Kidd.
God,
ridiculous.
Lot to wrap your head around.
I'm not hearing that excuse from the Dallas Mavericks postgame and Luka Doncic or Kyrie Irving when I was in the presser, and so was Chuck with Jason Kidd saying pregame how well prepared they were for the Clippers not having Kawhi Leonard. They made it sound like this is no issue. They've almost had 2 weeks to game plan for this. So using that as kind of an excuse, the way Luka and the way Kyrie Irving were talking about it postgame, I found that surprising, to say the least, especially from
loser behavior. Let's call it what it is. That's loser behavior.
Bad coaching. It's bad coaching is what it is. I've heard that from Mavs fans. Mavs fans, the ones who still comment on our videos, they didn't comment as much after the game one. We're voicing some distrust of perhaps some decision-making from Jason Kidd, which I just thumbs up and liked every comment because I couldn't agree more. Ty Lue's a much better coach.
I don't know if what happened in that first half was so much bad coaching by Jason Kidd, but just a lot of missed shots by the Dallas Mavericks and a lot of made shots by the Clippers. To be fair, it's not sustainable that Dallas is ever going to have another half in this series where they shoot 22% from the field, where they go 2 of 18 from 3. That's very unlikely to happen again. But that's a game you have to win. And the Clippers were playing great defense. They played a role in that. Dallas also played a role. They just had an off night.
Yeah, totally. We're going to talk about some of the other shooting things from the Clippers side when we talk about kind of what maybe concerns we have for game two. But right now, I believe we have yet another playoff edition, the first in playoff edition of Adam Oslin's High Five. What are you going to show us today, Adam?
5 highlights from game one, a couple of lowlights in there, but it's the high five. So we're calling them highlights here. You guys got the screen up too?
Words mean nothing in the high five. Yeah.
Well, obviously sometimes there's going to be some bad plays in here. You
The
got to
Pete
show it
Carroll
all.
school of coaching. There's no lowlights. It's all highlights. Everyone's doing a great job.
Win forever. Let's start things off with the first possession of the ball game for the Clippers here in the high five. This is Paul George missing a near side corner three. Somebody Chuck said was bad in the ball game. I disagreed with that. He had 11 of the 22 points in the fourth quarter, but that's neither here nor there. Paul George missing this shot to start things off. Look at Terrence Mann and the way he's able to get in between two guys there. They have three guys in the basket: Doncic, Gafford, and Kyrie Irving. And not one of them is available to box out Terrence Mann on this board, on this offensive rebound. He ended up with four of them. That's when you hear Jason Kidd say post-game, we lacked physicality, something Coach Lou talks about all the time. They just looked asleep out there. They looked like the team that eased their way into this ball game, what Coach Lou was concerned about. They looked like the team that had trouble with matinee early starts. It was really wild to see, and it led to their first bucket here from Amir Coffey as he looked to his right, looked off the defender as Washington looked towards James Harden, and then it was Amir Coffey knocking down the first.
It was a very Batum-esque play, I thought.
Yeah.
I was surprised that the Clippers only had like a 10% rebound advantage because watching this game, it just certainly seemed like they were dominant on the glass. They were the sharpest I feel like they've looked in a while.
Yeah, that is a good call.
Terrence Mann was great, and that was part of the game plan from Coach Lou, and he was masterful with everything, pushing all the right buttons, taking the right timeouts, the right ATOs coming out of timeouts yesterday. But I'm sure part of the game plan was, okay, Luka's going to be on you, Terrence Mann. You got to crash. You got to do the little things and make him have to try to keep up with you. And for the most part, he couldn't. Now let's talk about Big Zoo.
Your guy.
Ivica Zubac. My X Factor. I think a ceiling raiser for this team. If they go deep and make a long run, Ivica Zubac can be someone who really carries them at times. I don't know why he's not featured more. I've been talking about this for years, but especially this season. They just seem to forget about Ivica Zubac sometimes. Not in this game. More game plan brilliance from Coach Lou. He's got Gafford on him. We talked about it leading into this game. Gafford's smaller. Derek Lively's smaller too. How are they going to match up against Ivica Zubac? And I think 3 of the first 4 plays, they went to Big Zoo. He gets it on the block, and I don't think people understand just how skilled he is. He backs him down, but then he makes it look like he's going to the right-handed hook and comes back with the left here. That's not an easy shot. He's, I guess in San Francisco, they would call that amphibian, ambidextrous. He can work it with both hands there. They said that amphibian pitcher that one time because he threw with both hands. They meant
there's a pitcher.
So Ivica's
hard pivot. Sorry, at Mississippi State, there's a pitcher who has an ambidextrous glove, and he's throwing with both hands right now. Super crazy. Sorry.
Well, Ivica Zubac could probably do some of that too, because the post work he was doing in this game against guys, he's just bullying him and bodying him. Gafford could do nothing here. It was honestly as impressive of a start. A little bonus one here, backs him down again, keeps the pivot foot with the left foot, just puts it up again
out of the way
with the left hand. Like, this guy's far too skilled. I've jokingly said for a long time he's the long lost Gasol brother, but in this series, he kind of needs to be, because it seems like there's a real mismatch the Clippers can continue to exploit, hopefully here. Here's some playoff basketball. This is something you just don't see in the regular season, and it's Amir Coffey setting a screen at half court on PJ Washington because they're picking up James Harden full court, which is something the Clippers were doing on the other side. That's Batum-esque, by the way, trying to wear out a guy's legs, their point guard, each and every time up. That has a cumulative effect. But it ends up getting the switch for James Harden on this play against Luka Doncic as they were going right at him from the very beginning. He gets the little shoulder shove in there and knocks down the three-pointer. Just boom, hits him with the left shoulder. Doncic wasn't ready for that. He's moving a guy who's like, what, 260? I don't know. How big is Luka Doncic out there?
310. I tell people he's 330 pounds.
Yeah, on a good day. James Harden was in his bag early, but they were, as we had hoped, spamming, going right at Luka Doncic, trying to make him play defense, trying to make Kyrie Irving play defense. Sometimes you just get away from it. You know, there isn't that game plan discipline, but the Clippers were completely focused and dialed in this game, guys. It just felt like throughout the entire game, they were executing about as well as they could what Coach Lue was asking for.
We heard it in the pregame. It was, we're ready. That's what Ty Lue kept reiterating was, we're ready. This team's ready to go. There's no feel out game here. Like, we're not doing that. We can't do that. And it was great in the first half.
No time to go down 0-2 to the Dallas Mavericks again. Here's some bad defense, though. As I say that, Coach Lue earlier today talked about them having 26 points given up on game plan mistakes. And this is something I think one of the plays he was talking about here. I'm not sure why Amir Coffey is sagging so far. I know he's trying to shade over and help out with Terrence Mann on Luka Doncic, but with the position he's in, it's not going to be a three-pointer. And Coach Lue was talking about in the second half, they dropped some of their game plan assignments because they just didn't want to give up threes to let Dallas back into the ball game. Terrence Mann shades over so much, and it's just something you can't do anymore against Dallas when there's someone else like Kyrie Irving here. And look, Ivica Zubac is already over for help, and Terrence Mann is in good position. Amir's got to stay a little bit more home on his man in Kyrie Irving, who ends up sinking that three-pointer and got going in the third quarter where he had 20 points on 8 of 8 shooting, and I think that was his first bucket.
Yeah, that quarter, it was like, I talked about we talked about on the stream a little bit, right? Will, like, it's like Kyrie can do that. It's like still it's an anomaly, but also something that can happen, if that makes sense. Like the perfect quarter from Kyrie. Like, obviously it was incredible, but
is that an anomaly? I feel like
a perfect quarter for 20 points is pretty.
That's
but it's like in that in
but
between,
like,
I guess is
but
what
like
I
I mean,
saying.
he's huge,
so good.
Like, he's a big time shot maker. He's a huge momentum changing player. You know, he could pull up from all over the floor. So, it's one of those things. They as good as they were and as tight as they weren't perfect. And as we said coming into this one, you know, it depends on Kawhi Leonard's availability. But if they're going to win this one without him, they're going to have to be damn near perfect.
Yeah.
You could say he was due also after that first half.
That's true.
I mean, they scored 30 points as a team. Unbelievable.
To watch. Just
last clip here in the high five. Another defensive error by the Clippers here after Paul George tries to go to work. I hope I have the timing right on this. It is 5:24 here. Let's see. He was very good. Obviously, Paul George going at him, but there was a double drag I'm looking for here where Luka Doncic gets open. I don't think it's this play either. Son of a bitch. I thought I had my timestamps right, guys. I guess I didn't here. My mistake, game plan mistake by myself here. There was a double drag where they let Luka Doncic get off, and it made no sense because Russell Westbrook was playing so far off of him that in the double drag where you set two screens, and I think I found it right here, Russ wasn't even guarding his guy. Maxi Kleber, here it is right here.
Oh,
so Terrence Mann is on Luka Doncic. Russ is on, that's my mistake here. Russ is on Kyrie Irving. Zoo is on Maxi Kleber. Irving comes over to set the screen here on the double drag. He gets the first one. Kleber's waiting for the second guy to have to screen, and Russell Westbrook's not even there. Terrence Mann was calling out to Russ, I think, to switch, but it's already too late. Yeah. And Luka Doncic just gets to walk into a three-pointer here. And then you see Coach Lue and Terrence Mann talking afterwards. Obvious miscommunication, but you're going to see this play a lot. It's pretty common, and especially with Luka Doncic, and the Clippers just have to be better there. Coach Lue was showing his hands like this. I'm wondering if he was saying, no switch, I want you to fight through that. I don't know. But there was some sort of miscommunication for Luka Doncic to just get to walk into a three-pointer when they were specifically trying to force them inside the three-point line in the second half. But overall, that's nitpicking a little bit, or maybe foreshadowing to what the Clippers could see in game two is my point of showing those last couple of clips. When they talk about how they can be even better, how they still have stuff to clean up. It's defensive miscues like that.
Yeah, I totally agree. A note about the Zoo thing. The Clippers are 13-4 when Zoo plays more than 30 minutes so far this season, which is pretty crazy. Yeah, I think the screen thing is something we definitely like. Dying on screens is something. That's how we get, Luka on Zoo minutes, and he missed some of those shots that usually go in for Luka. But yeah, I don't know. Will, what are you kind of looking for from game 2? Maybe more from the Clippers. It's kind of tough because it's like more of the same physicality just for 48 minutes.
Yeah. I mean, like, how do you really neutralize them? I mean, I've heard some people maybe talk about Kleba, who did not have a great game 1. Still, like, size-wise, I think he's going to struggle with the Ivica Zubac. So I think keeping him involved, especially early, is going to be big again for the Clippers, assuming that they still have that size mismatch. Because, that is physically probably their greatest advantage that I can think of. Without Ivica Zubac on the floor, we didn't see any Tice in game 1. We saw Mason Plumlee minutes, but there's just not a lot of size out there. And we talk about it all the time, like the necessity for getting some easy buckets. And I thought the ball movement looked a lot better. There was some stuff, especially late, where the Clippers were kind of falling into some old bad habits offensively. Sort of settling for stuff, just getting really late into the shot clock before getting the offense going. Almost had a really bad Paul George turnover where he dribbled all over himself. Like, oh my God. So just like I said, like the execution here is, it's a great game 1. It's a huge win. I'm ecstatic. Like I was ecstatic when it happened. I'm ecstatic now. This thing is just beginning. It's a long road ahead, and they're gonna have to stay locked in. So I'm curious to see how Dallas counters. Like I said, like personnel wise, I'm struggling to see like a whole lot of like rotational stuff that's gonna be able to like really turn the tide here.
They played 10 guys? Kid played 10 guys, I think.
Yeah, and Ty Lue played.
He showed some of his
8,
hand,
right?
Yeah, I played 8. Yeah, because he said it's going to be 9-man when Kawhi's back. So yeah, like Jason Kidd this was his feel out game. But I am concerned the Clippers won, which is a disadvantage in game 1. We're being told. So did the Clippers really win?
I kind of understand what Richard was trying to say.
I would say with a different coach, like if Ty Lue is not your head coach, I think it's a little bit more difficult to take away still some key lessons from a win, especially a win that, I mean, like for the most part was pretty dominant. The Clippers looked, I thought, a head and shoulders better than the Mavericks. Obviously, only shooting 30% from 3, huge, the huge factor as well. But how good they looked, I still think that Ty Lue isn't done improving this yet. I was listening actually to the Low Post before we got on here, and Kevin Arnovitz brought up a really interesting thing talking about when they beat the Mavs in 7 and then went on to beat Utah in 6. Ty Lue ran out a longer rotation and a lot of different sort of like machinations because there was a lot of wing depth there, and some of it was redundant, whatever. But there's just less options. I said that as sort of a drawback for the Mavericks, but I think in some ways it can be a strength as well because you don't have to overthink things.
Right.
You have your guys.
You
you have your guys that are going to work, and assuming that you can stick to a game plan, like you're in this, you can stay in this. So
yeah, and they stuck to it well for the most part, pretty elitely.
And back then, I feel so many guys played early on in both those series also because they were down 0-2. They were down 0-2 to start off. Luka's cooking Patrick Beverley, their best defender, but he's undersized. Rondo eventually pretty much got phased out of the playoffs. So they were really trying to find some pieces that could work. I don't know. Are they more equipped against Luka Doncic in some ways, at least in the guard department, with guys 100%. Who can be thrown at him? When you look at Russell Westbrook, when you look at Terrence Mann, who I guess is looked at as more of a small forward by Coach Lue or whatever, but he plays guard, he guards guards, like he can guard a lot of different guys for you. And we said it, we thought it would be Amir Coffey getting the start And we were right about that. It made sense because then you have 3 guys that can all switch on Luka and Kyrie. Some people were saying they should go with Norman Powell and lean into offense. And I get what they were saying there because you're trying to score with Dallas. But to me, you don't want those guys to start in rhythm. If you can throw them off at the beginning of a game, that could put them in that uphill battle. That's what happened in a very drastic way, of course. Again, Dallas is not shooting 22.5% again. The Clippers may not have another game in this series where they shoot 50% from the outside, unless they pull a Dallas Mavericks from 2021 where they started the first 3 games shooting 50% from 3. I doubt it. I don't think it's going to be a full reversal. We did wonder, what if the Clippers go up 2-0 this time? Well,
knock on wood.
I'm fine with that as long as it doesn't turn into Dallas winning this time in Game 7. I don't want to see the exact opposite of what happened back in 2021. But if I'm a fan of the Dallas Mavericks, I'd be pretty concerned coming out of Game 1, not just because of fluky shooting. That's not sustainable. But if you can't play the way you did, which got you winning 16 of 18 games at the end of the season and got your defense souped up, and if you can't have Gafford on the floor to be the team they were, you got big problems. Like, I don't see how they can win this series if they don't play, if they can't replicate some of what they were doing in the regular season. And that means a lot of Daniel Gafford and a lot of Derek Lively. And we already saw in Game 1 them trying out Maxi Kleba because those guys, for the most part, especially Gafford, were very much ineffective out there.
Oh, go ahead, Will.
I was going to say, and both of their guys, the leaders of the offense, I mean, they still got their shots. They still put up numbers. I mean, they combined for over 60. Like, is there, will there be a game where they combine for 80? Yeah. I mean, yeah, I wouldn't bet against it, but I like the degree of variance. I thought the Clippers game plan, essentially wearing those guys out, trying to let them run some circles around themselves, as long as you're limiting some of those threes and the easy shots at the rim. It paid off. And if they're able to continue to do that, I mean, that's going to wear down. That's going to be tiresome.
The inexperience from the Dallas Mavericks showed in Game 1, outside of Luka and Kyrie and the great second halves they had. The others, they didn't get a great performance. I thought PJ Washington was actually really good defensively, especially against Paul George at times.
Jr.
That was impressive.
Seemingly was like the only Maverick who cared for the whole game to play defense.
And he was on his ass multiple times. James Harden put him on the ground using his off arm, and he went over. He gave him nothing on the other end. So the one way that the Clippers have been constructed for years that has given teams problems is they have more two-way guys that can give you something on both ends. And then you look around the rest of the NBA, and where there are holes, there are flaws. There's too many guys that are one-dimensional for teams. And the Clippers haven't had as many issues with that over the last, so in the 2-1-3 era.
There was a great quote from Ty Lue about coffee, kind of about being able to do offense and defense. He just, on starting coffee, said he'd like to be able to throw somebody at Kyrie, so PG with Kawhi being out doesn't have to worry about both of them, chasing both Kyrie and Luka around. He said post-game, he's one of our better defenders. He thought he did a good job. Thought he turned down a couple of shots he normally takes, which is fair. Terrence said that a couple times too. They were still very effective in Game 1, but he said other than that he was pretty good. So Coffee's probably going to start again. I have every Clippers fan should feel confident about this in place of Kawhi. It sucks obviously that Kawhi's not there, but the Clippers are doing that thing where everyone's playing plus 15% better. Everyone was locked in at that level in Game 1, including Amir. And it's been phenomenal. The switch has been flipped. All right, coming up.
Just like Game 1 against Phoenix, baby.
Coming up, we're going to talk about what the Mavs can maybe throw at us with maybe some concerns. We got some ads that might be loud. If that's been your case on the audio, go ahead and turn it down. We got ads coming up, and then some concerns, and our Kawhi Leonard honorable X Factor player of the game decision maker picks coming up right after this.
All right, welcome back into Clips and Dip. We're talking a little bit more about Game 2 of Mavs Clippers. Another pivotal one. I guess I'll kick it to you, Adam. Looking ahead, like, what is there something that sticks out to you as maybe the most concerning for how the Mavs could bounce back from that Game 1?
Well, I think it starts with just Luka and Kyrie getting off to quicker starts. if both of those guys are going early, I want to say Kyrie started 1 for 5. Luka got an easy layup early on. He got that tough jumper over
That was
Terrence Mann and then
crazy.
patted him on the back afterwards because it was so well defended. It was cool to see a nice little exchange between those two. Terrence Mann was smiling a little bit. They go back a ways with their history, going back to Vancouver in that preseason game where they got into it. But if they have to get off to a faster start for the Dallas Mavericks. They are the straw that stirs the drink, the catalyst for this team. They're superstars. And I think that's maybe part of the reason why Dallas only had 8 points in that second quarter and were bricking wide open threes. When you get down by the amount they were down that quickly and your superstars don't look like themselves, that has a trickle-down effect, I think, confidence-wise to the rest of the role players because they missed a lot of good looks in that second quarter. An 8-point quarter is not happening again by the Dallas Mavericks in this series. It's just not. The Clippers only had, I think, 22 in that second quarter, but still, that's when the game really got away from them. And it wasn't just the Clippers playing great defense. Dallas was missing everything and looked a little bit rattled and shook out there. They did. The crowd was on top of them. Clipper Nation showed up in a big way. It was really loud in there. It was great to see. But Luka and Kyrie, I expect both of them to start much faster in game one, especially
Well,
Luka.
and likewise for the Clippers. I mean, if shots aren't falling down, if the offense is a lot harder, are they going to be able to commit to the same level defensively that we saw in game one? Are they going to be able to stick to the game plan? Because one of the issues I think we've all had with this team is like sometimes when things get tight, they kind of crumble. They fall apart a little bit in a way that, it's not very becoming. So I mean,
it looks bad.
And it's the
Yeah, I know
playoffs,
exactly
and the switch is flipped, and it's it looks like things are at a different level of intensity, but like it's easy to have a plan, I guess, until the shit hits the fan. So if they do have, if they do have sort of a cold start to this one, a Clipper start that we've certainly become much more accustomed to, are they going to be able to still defend at the same level and execute at a high level?
The shooting was crazy in game one from the Clippers. Lucas Hahn put out these tweets. Our boss, he said the Clippers made 18 threes on 50% shooting in game one. For the season, they made 12
with Paul George shooting 33%.
Yes, yeah. During the season, they made just over 12 and a half threes per game on 38% shooting. So like he said, they're a good 3-point shooting team. No one's ever sustained 18 makes from 50% on deep. 12 to 15 threes on 35 to 42% shooting is normal for the Clips. 18 on 50% is one of the best shooting games all year. Obviously, I don't think anyone expects the Clippers to shoot 50% and make 18 threes again, because part of that is just rolling and feeling good. So this goes back to kind of the Zeus discussion too, right? Like if things are looking ugly from the outside, will they commit again to help getting Zoo going, right? Like that's, as we've been mentioning, that's the easy bucket, when the threes are falling.
Cheat code. Get it to Big Zoo. Let him go to work. Believe in him. We said before the series, it's so important for him to score so they keep that confidence in him to keep him on the court. Because before, as good as he was defensively, if he's not giving you enough on the offensive end, you can think of other options to throw out there. But if Ivica Zubac is looking that dominant in the post, you have to keep him on the floor. So I think it's imperative for him to continue to score. And Will, you brought up Paul George a second ago. Like I took a cheap shot at Chuck post game, what he was saying about Paul George. Nothing new there. I saw someone in the comment section going off about Paul George and how, why are you guys talking about Paul George like he was so great and this and that? It was all about James Harden and Russell Westbrook in game one. And I think to myself, well, Paul George was missing when everybody else was making. And then he was making when everyone else was missing in that fourth quarter. They only scored 22 points on the fourth. He had half of those points. When they took that timeout, he came back with a 7-0 run. He was hitting tough shots. Like, to me, that's a gritty type of playoff line, but also performance. I know the box score, he was 8 for 20, but the timely shots were there when they had to have them against really good defense. So, and also, I thought defensively, he was incredible for most of that
after
game.
The first,
he had a couple. He had a couple of stops on the back line where he was so engaged. He was calling out, communicating to guys. I thought he was their defensive anchor when Ivica Zubac was being pulled out to the perimeter. Paul George was holding it down like he was Kawhi Leonard out there because we know how good he's been on the backline defense all year.
What are the Mavs going to do about Gafford? I was listening to Locked On Mavs. Their suggestion was to start Lively over Gafford. Gafford looked bad against, like, there's no other way. He was not ready for the physicality. They were suggesting start Lively over Gafford and cut the rotation, take Exum out, and give Green his minutes. They know more about the Mavs than we do. I'm just relaying the information. But I wouldn't be surprised if Jason Kidd doesn't give this a thought, because it was rough.
But
The Clippers flip the switch and the Mavericks are pushing the panic button?
I was going to say, like, I feel like, you know, that might be a little too soon.
I agree.
If you give up on Gafford in game 2, and I could see pulling him after the first stint if Ivica Zubac does the exact same thing and the Clippers are
That's
up 10-2.
different to me, though, than a starting lineup change.
Part of this big turnaround by them in the second half of the season and being one of the hottest teams in the league is greatly because of the acquisition of Daniel Gafford. I think to some degree, you have to live and die with him. Like, he either performs well for them because he's such an integral part of their team, or they're not winning the series. He just has to turn it around. And it was 14 minutes. Part of that was because he was getting bullied, but he also rolled his ankle. He went out because of that. I don't know. I wouldn't give up on a key piece like that early in the series. Even if I think Derek Lively can be better because he's obviously bigger, he can play too, but I don't want to look like I'm in panic mode right off the bat and starting someone else. Even Dante, I don't like the Exum call either. The guy shot 50% from 3 this season. He came through with clutch threes against them, against the Lakers. He had that game-winning 3 against Houston when they were rolling. Like, I don't think you can give up on a guy that quick into the series because you might not be able to get him back if you need him.
The mental thing and, like, the locker room thing is very real too. They mentioned that on the show. They're like, we have no idea what it would be like to just tell a guy who's been starting the whole season, you're playing good defensively, you think, hey, you're out. You're getting your ass kicked, so we have to switch somebody else out.
I mean, I know Zoo looked good. Don't get me wrong, but guys, you might want to have a little more faith.
So I was looking at their lineups. They only had 2 positive lineups that played more than 3 minutes for plus minus for the Mavs. They played Kyrie, Exum, Luka, PJ, and Kleba for 6 minutes. They were plus 7. And then they played Kyrie, Exum, Luka, PJ, and Green for 6 minutes. And that was also plus 7. So there's something. They went small before the Clippers, which I love that Ty stuck to size. Because, again, Zoo was playing so well. He was like, I don't give a shit. Go small.
What'd you guys think of Big Plum? I thought he was pretty solid.
Maybe the best he's been. He was so good. He can
maintain that in some focused stints. That's another one of those, like, sort of momentum things.
100%.
I was wrong. I thought he'd go Daniel Tice, but
yeah.
I think part of the reason they went Big Plum was Gafford picked up those 2 fouls in the first quarter, was out of the game, 7-1 Lively's in, and I think maybe they thought, well, Big Plum's a better matchup against Lively. Daniel Tice made more sense to me against Gafford, but against Lively, maybe it's Big Plum.
Yeah, I think that's he was. Yeah, he played normal basketball, which is what you want from Plumlee, if that makes sense. Sometimes he gets a little showtimey, and you're just like, what are we doing here? On both sides.
Hey, that pass to Paul George.
Yeah,
we'll take that showtime.
This is like another concern. Do we expect this sort of like free throw disparity to continue? Because obviously fully. 2 superstars going to get superstar calls, but you look at the Clippers game plan, even, you know, like limiting threes, limiting direct drives to the basket, sort of funneling things into Zoo. I don't know about it, man. I don't know about it.
I thought the Clippers got a really bad whistle.
Terrence Mann was getting destroyed by the Mavericks sometime.
Did he get clotheslined and there wasn't a call in the first half?
Yeah, like, it was not. You could hear it from the press box.
I couldn't believe Ivica Zubac got a flagrant and a tech, and Maxi Kleba got nothing. I thought he'd still get a technical. He initiated it. What was that? I thought, honestly, how many times have we talked about the refs all year? For new
Dog
Mavs
shit.
fans, maybe 2 or 3 times. Less than a handful of times we talked about
Yeah,
the
it's not a
referees. You guys got 20 more
Yeah.
free throws, and the Clippers took more
Yeah.
two-pointers. They were in attack mode more. That was weird.
Weird
It was a
stuff.
weird whistle. I don't want to focus on it too much, but it is another one of those things. Like if that's going to maintain, I expect them to get more free throw attempts. I'm not saying that at all,
Sure.
and I'm not saying that's like a rig or a ref thing or anything like that. But just that level of disparity,
20.
I guess I was kind of surprised at.
Yeah,
I think
and-
I think it was the second largest disparity next to the Lakers Nuggets series of all the game ones, I believe.
Probably.
Could be wrong on that.
I'm going to choose to believe that you're right because it felt insane. So
Some people were saying and speculating that, well, Dallas has the media on their side, and maybe the refs have been influenced or something. It's one game.
Yeah.
I'm not going to put that.
Yeah,
much into it.
I don't necessarily. Yeah, I don't know that I buy that.
I do like the point, though, of like the shooting's going to cool off for the Clippers. So we need the free throw disparity to even out a little bit.
Yeah, regress in some areas.
Make
Paul
up for
George
it
is
with
more
Leonard.
efficient. Norman Powell has a better game, and you can make up for not having the hot shooting from the outside in game 2 and other ways.
LA Clippers film was pointing out that in the second half, they played with Luka out of kind of like the high post a little bit more and had people kind of revolving around him. Ty Lue did mention that their defense kind of just like they just switched it up a little bit and kind of like played the NBA version of prevent defense, I guess. So I wonder how much of what we saw in the second half from Luka in the high post is real versus how much of it is, because I'm assuming they're going to go back to it earlier because it was one of the few things that worked. So I'm keeping an eye on that.
And Luka, he criticized himself for not being aggressive enough out of the gates. I didn't think he was unaggressive. Like he was taking his shots. He was missing some of them. But there was also a play in the third effing quarter where Big Zoo, as good of a game as he had on the offensive end, I think him locking up Luka Doncic for a possession was my favorite play of the ball game. Did you guys see that?
I'm sure I did, but
Luka had to, I forget if he had to bail out of it. He had to pass out of it because he couldn't shake Ivica Zubac's. To me, I was like, progress. That never happened in 2021. Yeah. Ivica Zubac's footwork was phenomenal, even against Luka, who I think when the matchup data said he went, I think 4 of 7.
He still
against
had 30.
Zubac.
Yeah, like.
But that one play locked down in Alcatraz, Luka Doncic, no
Mavs
escape.
fans have not given Zoo enough credit for his growth. Some Clippers fans do. But, like, it's not the same Zoo. We mentioned this.
Texting with Carl earlier.
But, like, we talked about this. Well, like, it's a different Zoo.
Oh, I mean, 100%. And I mean, this team, when shots are falling, and this is across the board, looks like a different defensive team. Yeah. And that applies to as solid as, Ivica Zubac has been defensively throughout his tenure. When he's actually getting fed a little bit on the other end of the floor, I feel like it ratchets up to that next level.
Did you see the Eric Bui drawing for Zoo? The last one, the newest one that came out?
I did not.
We're about to, thanks to the power of technology. This is a great one. The Corn Dog Harden. I mean, one of my
incredible,
one of the greatest drawings, pieces of art I've ever seen. Here's the Zoo one, which is
that Hodor,
which is phenomenal. That's what we need. We need fat, jolly, happy Zoo, is what we need. Some more of that.
Get him the damn ball. I'm gonna Photoshop that Keyshawn Johnson book from back in the day with Ivica Zubac's head on it.
That's a good call.
Or if anybody wants to hit me up at Fall Out of May with it, I'm not that talented.
And then we talked about Derrick Jones Jr. a little bit. He could be someone who could maybe annoy Harden. Again, he's the one Mav who looked like he's actually interested in playoff defense for more than like 5 minutes at a time. And then they put PJ Washington on PG. I don't know what the Clippers' leg situation was late in the game. It looked like the offense they were playing was like waste the clock, barely get it over half court a couple of times. So, again, the second half was so odd because of how the second quarter went that it's like, what are we really going to see defensively from the Mavs that's so different after playing 10 guys?
Physicality. I thought Washington was better than the Derrick Jones. He got
That's
thrown
fair.
to the ground at the
Yeah.
start of the third by James Harden on that step back 3-pointer. Was like, are the Mavs going to turn things around? And then first play of the second half, James Harden does that. I guess not. They looked like the lights were too bright a little
Turn
bit
them
to
off.
quote Jarrett
Turn
Allen.
them off.
I expect them to shoot better. I expect them to defend better. I expect game 2 to be much closer, of course. And the Clippers is going to be really hard to win that game. They are going to make some adjustments out there. They are going to hit more shots. I know Mavs fans don't like him anymore, but is Tim Hardaway Jr. going to have to play more just because he is a guy who can get really hot from the outside?
If his defense can keep him on the floor, that's what seems to be all their issues with him.
Yeah. Paul George went after him as soon as he came in. But he did knock down one 3-point shot. I don't know. They look thinner. I could have been very wrong about the Dallas and given them too much credit coming into this series for how well they have been playing, or it's just a bad matchup against Big Zoo for their front line. If their front line can't do the things that got them here in a series against the Clippers, they don't have a lot of paths to victory. Then it's just Luka and Kyrie getting scorching hot, which can happen.
Yeah.
But they might score 80 and still lose to the Clippers if the role players and the ancillary characters aren't good enough.
I hope that. That would be phenomenal. I said they were on pace for 80 at one point, and that was before they had 8 points in the second quarter.
The Clippers, though, James Harden was unbelievable. 20 points in the first half. He hit that step back, I think, at the end of the first quarter on Maxi Kleber from like 30 feet out. Some of the shots he was hitting, we're well aware he wasn't in a good 3-point groove from February through most of March, but he started to turn things around right at the end of the season, and it showed up for him. 6 of 11 from the outside. Like, he also hit 2 shots in the mid-range where he'd been shooting 37% all season from 5 to 9 feet. He got a floater to go. He got a step back on Tim Hardaway Jr., who fouled him, and he got the and one. So some of that, I don't expect him to be that good again, but he is still James Harden, and people are pointing out, the game 1 he had against Philly and how his legs can get worn out in the course of a 7-game series, and that's valid.
We talked about, the biggest advantage, or like the biggest difference for Harden was going to be less heavy lifting for him to have to do, and it has turned out that is not the case.
Welcome to a team with Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, right?
Yeah. So I mean, historically, it doesn't necessarily bode well, but who knows? We could get the big guy back, and maybe he won't have to be relied on as heavily if the legs aren't there.
Are we calling Kawhi the big guy now? Because I like that.
Special K.
The big guy.
I don't know about Special K.
I'll eat that cereal all week if he returns. What about Russell Westbrook? He can duplicate. Okay, maybe not the 2 of 4 from the outside. They did dare him to take those. He made them. There was a big 3 made by him in the fourth quarter. But the lob dunk that he got from James Harden, when he turned the corner, I think it was in the first or early second quarter, and got that big throw down. He had 13 points. A lot of what he did is repeatable. That's not crazy. I thought his defense was good.
He was my X Factor pick, which is a perfect segue into Will. We said that your Kawhi Leonard PJ X Factor, or your Kawhi Leonard X Factor pick was going to be PJ Tucker. He DNP'd. I thought that's what you were going to go with. That's my bad.
Well, that was actually my strategy. That was the X Factor.
It worked. Ty Lue.
Great call by me. Great call by Ty Lue. Great minds think alike.
Hats up to the genius.
When I picked Bones, I actually thought he was going to play.
Okay, Will, who is your Kawhi Leonard X Factor pick for Game 2, Clippers versus Mavs?
I think it's going to be Norm Powell pouring it on.
He was gamed out a little bit in Game 1.
Yeah, and I just. They have personnel to slow him down. Obviously, I think it just depends on where he sits in the rotation, how they end up doing that. But I do not expect him to be this quiet Game 2, and I think that could go a long way. Like I said, if we are in that unfortunate scenario where nobody can seem to get shots going down, Norm is generally the guy who, when all else fails, like, generally kind of becomes automatic. So he's going to be my X factor in this one. You wonder obviously defensively, like how long he can stay on the floor, but if he's lighting it up, especially in like non-Luka minutes, I think that could be huge.
Adam, your Kawhi Leonard X factor pick of the Game 2 Clippers Mavs series Part 3 first round NBA playoffs 2024.
Okay. Now, my Ivica Zubac's X factor for the series remains, but I won't go with him again in Game 2. It's too easy with the way Big Zoo's eating out there. I don't want to be that predictable with it. I will go with Amir Coffey. Knocked down 2 threes, the first shot of the game, but then another one that was kind of big in the second half. They hit so many timely threes. It wasn't just they shot 50% from 3, but every one would stop a run by the Dallas Mavericks.
Momentum.
Plenty of them coming out of ATOs. Yeah. Momentum killing 3-pointers by the Clippers. That's what also made them special. But I think Amir Coffey, his defense was awesome, but I want to see him get a couple opportunities maybe in transition. Where the Clippers defensively, by the way, with their transition defense, I think Dallas ended up with 18 fast break points or something like that. Most of them came in the second half. But even when I was looking over for the high five, how fast the Clippers were actually running to get back, totally different. Like I saw Mason Plumlee flying down the floor. They got beat sometimes. Kyrie's too fast. They were doing some cherry picking, but at least the effort was there. But Amir Coffey's really good in transition. Would like to see him, though, also get to – he's got that little turnaround mid-range game. That's a bucket for Amir. He's been really good there since he got back into the rotation. Amir Coffey.
A little hockey accent on the end of the little bucket there. I'm going – and this is an easy pick. I'm going Paul George. We're probably going to need a half like Harden had from one of those two guys. And I think Paul George is due. He got a lot of momentum from that fourth quarter, from taking control offensively and demanding the ball. He still got a lot of shots up, which I loved. So I'm going Paul George, 30-plus points. Won't have to defend Kyrie as much because Amir's out there. 30 ball from PG.
That's probably the best pick because I don't see how they win Game 2 if he doesn't go for 30-plus.
And we're obviously picking the Clippers to go to Dallas up 2 games.
3
They're going to give us an extra one.
We'll spot you one, fellas.
This was a great performance. That wraps up the game talk. We do have final give no quarter results from our official accountant, whose name I can't remember because I just X'd out of the tweet. But for those of y'all wondering, it was 82 games, 328 total.
It was 82?
Somewhere around there, right around there.
Okay, interesting.
They extended the season, huh?
328 total quarters possible, 1 OT game. We won 171 quarters. That's great. We lost 139. So we each owe $34.75 to whatever charity we decide on. I know. Please watch the YouTube. Please subscribe.
We need this.
We need we're addicted to charity.
Do people know about the give no quarter motto? I know Clipper Nation does, but Dallas Mavericks fans may not know.
That's a great call. If you're new to this pod, might be fewer Dallas Mavs watching after some of the things they said before Game 1 and how Game 1 transpired. But the give no quarter is the worst slogan in the history of the Clippers, and it has now been used. It's pretty close, man. Can you remember another bad one as bad as give no quarter?
I can't remember any bad
Exactly.
one.
That's why it's so bad.
I don't really like the all hands either.
Yeah, we're also reusing that for like the 3rd year in a row for the playoffs.
I mean, I think I'd like it better if it was on deck.
Yeah,
like all hands on deck. I think like makes a little bit more sense. I get what you're going for with the all hands, but
tighten it up.
Yeah, I don't know.
But give no quarter is the slogan that every Clippers fan dislikes because it is childish and
they ran it back.
They ran it back. And as you can see, it's very easy to tell how many quarters you give. The Clippers gave $34.75 worth of actual quarters this year. The team should use this as an opportunity to donate to somewhere, I think. They should be like, oh, we gave this many quarters this year.
They still do the trees for threes?
Yeah, they do. If it's someone's birthday or threes for trees.
Yeah, where
trees
they
for trees.
where they send bags of weed to other countries.
Yeah, to help with the trade. That's what Give No Quarter is.
And then what? They had 40 more quarter wins than losses this year.
Right around
Something like that.
30-ish.
Around 40?
Yeah,
I don't have the numbers
171
right
to
in front of me.
139. You do. It's on the breakdown.
Okay.
Will,
As I said, I don't have a ring.
Will, where can these fantastic people listen and maybe watch us talk about these old clips?
Yeah, so if you're new to the show, the best way to check us out is over on YouTube. That's youtube.com/@ClippersPodcast. You can also you can also listen to us wherever you get your podcast. If you're listening over on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, leave us a little rating review. It helps out. But thank you so much for tuning in. Looking forward to game 2. A lot of series left. Yeah, appreciate everybody who's tuning in though.
And Adam, one quick positive thing before we send these Clippers fans on their way.
I think you said it best earlier. While they're going to regress with the 3-point shooting, most likely, they can still get their free throw attempts up. They can have Norm Powell get going, and your player to watch and Paul George can be much more efficient out there. So I think there's ways that you can make an argument that the Clippers can still easily win game 2 and not just settle for the split at home without Kawhi Leonard if they don't have him tomorrow night.
There we go. We're excited to be there. We're all going to be in the building. If you're there, come say what's up. We're also doing a live stream after from the press box where we hopefully have as good of vibes as we did on Sunday. So there you have it. Thanks for hanging out. And as always, let's go Clips.